Russia's invasion of Ukraine on February 24, 2022, was the first large-scale aggression war in the European continent since World War II. It appears to be a simple confrontation between two countries, but you would be surprised to know that it has changed the dynamics of the world in unimaginable ways. Global impacts of Ukraine war can be seen in starving people in the developing world to a flood of refugees in the whole of Europe. Here are 5 major ways the Ukraine war has changed the world. Number 5. Uncontrollable refugee crisis. Since the Russian invasion of Ukraine, around 6.8 million people from Ukraine have fled their country, along with at least an additional 7.7 million people internally displaced. After initially fleeing to neighboring countries, at least 3 million people continued their journey, according to the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees. The largest number of refugees, a whopping 2.4 million, have moved to Russia, followed by 1.4 million to Poland. Apart from Poland, Germany and the Czech Republic also host a huge number of Ukrainian refugees. Almost 2 million Ukrainians have returned to their country since they fled the war, although some of this could be back-and-forth movement, according to the UNHCR. The high influx of Ukrainian refugees into the European Union countries has both galvanized support for them, as well as strained refugee intake systems. The Ukrainian refugees who have settled in a new country are usually reliant on the social safety net of that specific country, at least for the time being. This puts immense pressure on the economy of those countries. Number 4. Global food insecurity. You would be thinking how a war in a corner of the world can lead global starvation. The reason lies in trade. Ukraine is an important and crucial breadbasket in the global food economy, producing around half of the world's sunflower oil. According to the United States Department of Agriculture, USDA, Ukraine accounts for 15% of global trade in corn and 10% of global wheat trade, both of which are staple food items in many parts of the world. The Ukraine war conflict has cut off such exports, since Russia continues to blockade grain shipments at Ukraine's Black Sea ports. The impacts of these restrictions have especially been felt in countries dependent on imports of Ukrainian grains and cooking oil, such as Egypt and India, respectively. Yet the ripple effects go far wider across the globe. Some experts warn that the Ukraine conflict, along with the extreme weather due to climate change and pandemic-induced economic shock, is swiftly fueling a global food crisis. In May, the United Nations Security Council, UNSC, warned that hunger levels around the world have reached a new high, adding that tens of millions of people could face long-term famine due to the Ukraine war. As of September, around 23 countries have imposed export restrictions on food, an indication of dwindling food security. Number 3. Increasing energy insecurity. Russia is the biggest exporter of natural gas worldwide, the second biggest supplier of crude oil, and the third biggest coal exporter. Up until the Ukraine war, 3/4 of Russia's natural gas and nearly half of its crude oil had been going to Europe. In the year 2020, Russian oil, gas, and coal accounted for 1/4 of the European Union's energy consumption. But after Russia invaded Ukraine, the European Union sought to end its reliance on Russian energy. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen said that they simply cannot rely on a supplier who explicitly threatens them. Back in March, the Commission outlined intentions to liberate the European Union completely from Russian fossil fuels by the year 2030, as well as plans to drastically cut use of Russian gas 2/3 by the end of this year. Maximizing gas storage is one of the major strategies of that plan. Import of liquefied natural gas, for example from the United States, is another substitute option. Meanwhile, some experts are predicting gas shortages and potential rationing in the European countries. Many see the conflict in Ukraine as an opportunity for the European Union to not only free itself from its dependency on the Russian energy, but also fulfill the alliance's commitment to climate protection by building out renewable energy sources and ramping up energy efficiency in their manufacturing and other processes. However, there are limits to how quickly this can be achieved by Europe, and soaring demand for non-Russian sources of energy has seen prices shoot up across the globe. Number 2. Rapid inflation. Shortages in both food and energy sectors have played a huge role in changing the lives of many since the Ukraine war started. The prices drastically increased. When there is less supply of something, its value increases. Hence the inflation in food and fuel prices. And when food and fuel get more expensive, so does everything else, as it directly affects transportation and storage of all kinds of goods and services. Prices for food in particular are soaring right now, and future predictions are only indicating further inflation. The United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization Food Price Index, which measures monthly change in prices for a basket of food commodities, reached an all-time high earlier in March of the current year. Inflation. which is less buying power as prices of commodities go up, is a key measure that affects all aspects of the global economy. According to the International Labor Organization, inflation more than doubled worldwide in a year since March 2021. Inflation reached a record high of 8.1% last month in the Eurozone, which is monetary union of 19 member states of the European Union. Sadly, inflation is predicted to hit lower income and third world countries even harder, while a recent report by the IMF projected inflation of 5.7% for industrialized countries, and the predicted inflation for developing countries is 8.7%. As if increased costs were not bad enough, experts are predicting that prices could remain extremely high for years to come. Number 1. NATO's renaissance. The Russian invasion of Ukraine has left its prominent mark on geopolitics as well. Some experts across the world expect a renewed split into Eastern and Western geopolitical and economic alliances, with Russia and China on one side and the European Union and United States leading the other. The North American Treaty Organization, also known as NATO, was founded after World War II in 1949 and brings together the US, Canada, and 10 European countries. NATO, which is a child of the Cold War, became somewhat of an umbrella for democracy and free markets in European region, with a major expansion to the east towards countries surrounding Russia in 2004. The key to NATO is Article 5, which states a principle of collective defense, such that if any member is attacked, this shall be considered an attack on all, with military retaliation to be performed by each member country. While NATO's profile receded to the point that French President Emmanuel Macron in 2019 called it brain dead, the war in Ukraine is making the world's most powerful military alliance now take the spotlight. Finland and Sweden recently announced their intention to join the alliance, breaking nearly 70 years of neutrality, largely due to fears over Vladimir Putin's imperialist project for Russia. Critics of the alliance say its Eastern European expansion towards Russia amounted to a provocation and led to this war. NATO has been aiding Ukraine by supplying the country with weapons and medical equipment. This active phase of NATO shows that it is again gaining its popularity of the 20th century. This brings us to the end of the video. These were the 5 major impacts of the Russia-Ukraine war on the world. It is evident how conflict in one part of the world sends ripples throughout the globe and impacts the daily lives of people living thousands of miles away. Let's just hope this war ends soon, so that the world order gets back to normal. Before you leave, like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more interesting videos.